Hey everybody, welcome back to Dinner and a Show. It's been a while. I hope you guys have had a happy new year. This 2017 was a great year for movies, but it also had some stinkers. And I decided to just make a list, a top 10 list, and a top 5 worst movies of 2017. Um, Tanner is not here, obviously. He's in Missouri right now. And he actually got engaged. So congratulations, Tanner! It's awesome, and just can't wait to hear more about it. Um, and I actually saw that I watched, I think, 26 or 27 movies this year, or for 2017, and it was really mind blowing that I watched that many movies. But yeah, I had to dwindle it down to okay, what movies were my absolute favorites and what movies just left me angry, upset, frustrated, wanting more. And so yeah, I decided to do that with this list. So obviously, I haven't watched everything. I haven't watched the Emoji Movie. Haven't watched Transformers 5. I haven't, or The Last Night. I haven't watched The Shape of Water. Haven't watched The Post. Haven't watched Call Me by Your Name or a bunch of other movies that I'm sure will get nominated for Best Picture. So they are not on the list. But out of the movies I've watched that were released in 2017, here are my top 10. And so the runner-ups I have are John Wick Chapter 2, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and Get Out. John Wick Chapter 2 is an amazing action movie, and I really hope that it just changes the way that action movies are shot because I loved the wide shots. I loved the type of editing that it had. Um, they didn't like do very quick editing to just make up for sloppy action, and they actually spent time on the choreography, and they weren't afraid to hold on to that. So I thought that was really cool. Spider-Man: Homecoming, one of the best interpretations of Peter Parker, if not the best, surpassing Tobey Maguire's back in 2002 and 2004, and definitely 2007's with Spider-Man 3. Um, uh, yeah, Tom Holland did a fantastic job, and I think that it fits nicely into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well as standing on its own. Uh, yeah, so I think it is a great, great film, but it didn't quite make it up there because I think there were some other superhero movies that are better. And then the last one, for Get Out, I thought that it was great. I think that it's still relevant in the topics about racism that it shows today, and thought that very well made. Jordan Peele is a very brilliant and smart person, and he mixes the horror and humor quite well. Um, but I think there was another horror movie that was slightly better and more enjoyable for me. I'm sure Get Out will be in the Best Picture nominations. Um, will be among them, but it just wasn't as enjoyable as I thought. Number 10 was, which was It. It was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. Bill Skarsgård did a fantastic job as portraying the fearful or terrifying Pennywise the clown, and I thought that I was actually very afraid that they were going to hype this up too much, and then it just being a huge disappointment because the trailers, oh my gosh, some of the best trailers I've seen, and but it actually lived up to the hype. It was really great. Um, I enjoyed it. It was a coming of age story. I think the kid cast was amazing. It's really hard to get good actors of that age, and they were the casting director. I will give huge props to for being able to find these children um, and having them perform their hearts out in this movie. Really can't wait for chapter two of it and seeing where they're going to take the story. And I hope that they surpass it because in the miniseries, the second half of it for the adults was very weak. I'd say the kids' part was much stronger by a long shot, but I really think that the director knows what he's doing, and he will make a fantastic follow up to that. Number 9 is Wonder Woman. I thoroughly enjoyed Wonder Woman in the theaters. I watched it opening night with a good friend of mine. He was, we were both blown away by it. Great special effects, even comic booky, and they showed Wonder Woman in a very respectful way. Um, she's a very strong, independent character, um, but she's also very respectful to the people that she's working with, like Chris Pine's character, Steve, and I thought that they did show, like, gender equality in a very respectful way. I know I said that again, but yeah, it's true. I mean, because you have I think a lot of concerns from people was that this movie's just going to bash you over the head, with a feminist message, but they didn't. No, they showed Wonder Woman to be a phenomenal role model for people, and she just wants to help people, and she's not going to let anything get in her way, gender equality or anything. She uh, is a fantastic leader, and men and women looked up to her uh, with awe and wonder and respect. And I think that Patty Jenkins did a brilliant job, and I think that this would be that this shows that it's possible to make a fantastic female-led uh, movie, female-led superhero movie, and that people will watch it if it's a good movie, and it is. And if you're kind of confused, just look at the Supergirl TV show, and look at Wonder Woman, and how they both tackle just gender inequality, um, and women's rights and things like that. And there's a huge difference, and I think Wonder Woman did a way better job at just at showing that, and still being a enjoyable movie. Number 8 is Blade Runner 2049. Thought it was a brilliantly executed movie. Cinematography was fantastic. The colors were great. Visual effects were great. I loved where they just took the world of Blade Runner, the originals from the 80s. It had a cult following later on, but it took a while for it to get there, and Blade Runner 2049 doesn't need that. It's solid already. And and Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Jared Leto, everybody does a fantastic job in there. It's a very beautiful film. It shows the need to belong from the replicants. Shows the prejudices between replicants and humans, and it just explores just meaning of life, or just things like that. It is a very slow-paced movie. This is sort of the director's style. He did Arrival, and that was also a very brilliant movie, one of my favorite movies of 2016. Unfortunately, it didn't win Best Picture. I mean, I wanted La La Land to win, but still, no, Arrival was a solid runner-up, I would say. But yeah, it's a slow-paced movie, so you may not like it depending on just what you like. I prefer fast-paced movies, but I will very much enjoy a slow-paced movie if it's done right, and Villeneuve does it beautifully. I really hope that this wins Best Cinematography, because it's some of the best cinematography I've seen all year. And it uses sound and the music very much to its advantage for intensity, for somber and just haunting, intimate settings. And I think that, yeah, it's definitely up there. I wish that this did better at the box office, but hey, that's it's what it is sometimes. Number 7 is Dunkirk. Christopher Nolan is back this year with a wonderful World War II movie, just capturing the moments of the British and the Allied forces trying to retreat from a Nazi occupation of France. And so it looks like that the Nazis have won, and the Allied forces are trying to retreat, and there's almost 400,000 people trying to escape, and they don't have enough ships, and the government isn't really able to help them. So Winston Churchill calls upon citizens to rescue them, and they do, en masse, and it is a beautiful, just moving, emotional moment. They utilize sound, like Blade Runner, way better. This is probably the best technical movies of the year. I really hope this wins Best Sound Design, um, and like, and this could also win best cinematography. I think this is just a beautifully shot movie. And I really hope this could win best score. Hans Zimmer is on a roll today. He's or this year he did Blade Runner 2049 as well as Dunkirk, and he is just on point. Like this music is unlike any other soundtrack I've ever listened to. It's very intense, very minimal, and just it really like just was having like putting me on the edge of my seat and just had the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It was just really really well done, and I think that this should definitely be nominated for those categories. Christopher Nolan has a very character-driven story for characters that you don't even know the names of unless you are a hardcore like World War II historian that just knows like a few of the officers' names. Kenneth Branagh is in there, Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, tons more. A guy from One Direction's in there, and he actually didn't take away from the movie. I didn't. I don't listen to One Direction, so I didn't really know where to spot him at. I only knew that because I watched a Jimmy Fallon interview with him, and apparently he did a good job, and he didn't take away from the movie's tone. So I thought he did a great job. And so number 6 now is the Lego Batman movie. Make fun of me all you want, but I absolutely loved this movie. I was laughing so hard. I think I watched this maybe like 2 or 3 times. Once in the theater with a friend of mine, and then like the other 2 at home. And it just is consistent, and it has a long shelf life. It is really funny. It definitely relies on your Batman knowledge. So if you've watched a lot of the Batman movies throughout the years, then you are on top of it. And you'll probably get a lot of the jokes and laugh at it. But I think you'll still laugh at the jokes, even if you haven't watched a ton of Batman movies. It is... it's just really great. And they do this Batman justice. It has a lot of heart between, Robin and Batman. Just the chemistry between them is hilarious. And you have Batgirl / Barbara Gordon. He's over there. I mean, it's a very big parody. Like, this is how parodies should be done. Satire films. This is how they should be done. And Lego has done this great. They've done a phenomenal job on doing this. And whoever is doing the scary movies, epic movies, date movie, whatever those stupid movies are called, they should take a note from the Lego movie, because they know how to do a satire movie while having it stand on its own 2 feet, not relying so much on making fun of other movies, but creating their own story. And I really hope that the Academy rights its wrong of not having Lego Movie from 2014 in the animated feature category. Lego Movie wasn't even like selected. I mean, out of the 5 films, Lego Movie was nowhere to be seen. It was one of the best movies, reviewed movies of the year, and it was nowhere to be seen in the Oscars except for like the best original song, and that was a huge disappointment and upsetting. And I hope that the Academy keeps the Lego Movie up there. I think so. Number 5 now, Star Wars Episode 8: The Last Jedi. This has been a very divisive film. I walked away from the movie excited. I absolutely enjoyed this movie, and I think that Rian Johnson did a brilliant job of taking Star Wars in a different direction that we're used to, and I think it was a positive direction. For spoilers, I think the characters that died, like Luke and Snoke and a few other characters, were necessary for character development. I think Luke had a wonderful arc, and that the way Rian Johnson handled it was great. Luke became the legend that the Resistance needs to spark hope again in the galaxy, and I think Snoke dying was excellent for Kylo Ren's development as a evil leader and just becoming his own man instead of relying on others. So I think, and I think the music was great. I mean, obviously there are problems with it. I mean, it doesn't obey physics. Rose and Finn's storyline is kind of distracts from the already long movie, but there are a lot of nitpicks, um, more nitpicks than just huge problems, and I think that's why I have it on my top five. I walked away enjoying it. I watched it a second time, and I walked away from that experience loving it even more. So that is why I have it at number five on my list. Number four is Logan. Logan was a brilliant movie. It came out in March, I think the first weekend of March of 2017, and I think it surpasses its own superhero genre, like The Dark Knight did. I think that Logan will be on many lists on the top five superhero movies of all time, alongside The Dark Knight. Because The Dark Knight kind of adopts the cop genre, as well as keeping it a superhero movie. Logan does that as well, except with the Western genre. I think that they do a brilliant job of keeping that in. They actually use a Western movie sort of as reference. I forget the name of it. Sorry about that. But I think Logan was brilliant. I think the only downside I could take from it is that they do a few things in there just because of its R rating. There are some things that they did well and wisely because of its R rating that they couldn't do because of its restrictions as a PG-13 movie, like in the past. But here I think they used profanity way too much, and I think and it felt like they only did it because it was R, and also there was a scene where like a girl flashes Logan because, hey, it's an R-rated movie, we can show boobs, yay. And those were really stupid. Like I know Logan cusses a lot, but it didn't sound really. It felt a little. It felt unnatural. I think in the script, and especially when Charles Xavier was swearing his head off a few times, because that didn't really. I know that he's off his rocker in Logan, but it kind of took away the dignity of Charles, and you can argue that that's the point, but I just didn't feel, from the time I knew Charles Xavier over the past 17 years, it just didn't really feel natural to his character. So I just felt like they were just swearing for the sake of swearing, because it's an R-rated movie, we can say the F word, we can say the S word, yay. So it's, that was me. So anyway, but it was still a solid movie, and the fact that it's still on my top 5 list despite all that, that's a nitpick. It's still a fantastic movie, and I think this will have a long shelf life. Number 3 is Coco. Pixar has done it again. They're back on the animation map. I mean, they've been on there, but a few of their movies have not been as great. So like Finding Dory, it was fun, but still, it's like Finding Nemo was way better. And then you have Cars 3 that came out the same year in June, I believe, or July, and that was it was okay. It was okay. It was better than Cars 2 by a long shot, but it was still disappointing. But Coco, man, was this brilliant! I loved the soundtrack. I loved the songs. I mean, the songs were serviceable to the movie. They weren't like Frozen, at the level of Frozen, but they were still solid. And I think the characters were great. The last 20 minutes, definitely emotional, heartfelt. I think I was a little misty at the end. I think they did a brilliant job, and I really hope that Pixar continues to make beautiful movies like this. The Incredibles 2 is coming out this year, so I'm very excited for that, and hope that it lives up to the hype. And we've been waiting so long for that. Coco, it reminds me why I love animation so much and why I love Pixar so much. And great job, Lee Unkrich, for just directing such a beautiful movie. Number 2 is Baby Driver. I absolutely fell in love with this movie. I love the car chases, some of the best I've seen in the last 10 years. I loved all the characters. I loved the soundtrack. Oh my gosh. People were gushing about how wonderful the soundtrack for Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was, and even 2 to an extent. But Baby Driver, man, this is just just an awesome, has an awesome soundtrack, and I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, it's a very simple story. It's been done before, but the execution of it is just a very stylistic movie with its camera shots, its editing, and just where they take the story. It's really good. I really encourage you to watch it, and I really hope that it is on the nomination for Best Picture and Best Director, Best Screenplay, because I really think it deserves that. And then my favorite movie is The Disaster Artist. I think that this was well, obviously it's number one on my list, so it's the best, at least for me. For those who know me, I'm a big fan of The Room. I think it is one of the best, worst movies of all time. And because Tommy Wiseau put his heart and soul into the making of the movie, and people can tell that, even though it is a horrendous movie, and it's hilarious because of that. I find enjoyment of the movie despite it being a terrible movie because of the heart and soul he put into this movie. You can definitely tell when you're watching it. So The Disaster Artist is based on the making of The Room, from the book of the same name, written by Greg Sestero and a journalist friend of his that I always forget his name, so I apologize for that. But yeah, the book and movie are from the perspective of Greg Sestero, played by David Franco. And just, what this is, like, what the heck he's got himself into. Like, the two guys going into Hollywood trying to make it in the business, and they both don't. Tommy Wiseau to a much bigger extent of not making it. And they're basically saying, screw the system, we're going to go make our own movie. And they do. And, not a lot of people can say that. A lot of people pursue their dreams and they give up and then they, do something else. These guys don't, and they make their movie. And despite it being a terrible movie, they did it. And now they're famous because of it. I mean, people talk about The Room more than Moonlight. Yeah, that just came out last year and, won Best Picture, which I think La La Land should have. But, I'll get off that. But The Disaster Artist is great. It is hilarious, but it also has a lot of heart. And they respect Tommy Wiseau, which is, because this could have easily been just kind of a satire, a parody, a comedy making fun of the man, but they don't. They respect him, and they respect the fact that they respect his efforts. They respect his passion, and they respect the fact that this is what he wants to do, make movies, and he did. He directed it, produced it, starred in it, financed it. He did everything, and I think you find better enjoyment if you've watched The Room and then watch The Disaster Artist. But I think you can walk in watching this movie without having watched The Room and still find plenty of enjoyment out of it. I think the editing is great. I think the soundtrack is hilarious. They have Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up in there, and I was like, I just got rickrolled in the theater in 2017. But it's great. Anyway, those are my top 10 lists for best movies for 2017. For the next video, I will put my top 5 worst. So that's all I got. Until next time, I will see you at the movies.